Discover how one incredible nanny transformed the life of a millionaire's daughter in just 30 days. Maria sat on the cold steps of her apartment, fingers flexing nervously as she adjusted the too-tight blazer. She had landed a job as a nanny for the millionaire Kensington family, tasked with caring for their troubled teenage daughter, Isabella. With each passing moment, the lavish world of the wealthy suburbs of Chicago felt more suffocating. The gold-plated gates standing guard like sentinels, while her own life filled with the noise of unsold dreams echoed behind her. She took a deep breath, shaking off the unease. Today, she'd change everything for Isabella. Standing at the doorstep of the sprawling mansion, Maria found herself momentarily breathless. The homes around her sparkled with manicured lawns and ornate fountains, bright enough to blind her. Inside, Isabella sat alone in a grand room, fingers tapping an angry rhythm on her phone. This wasn't just a gig, it felt like a rescue mission. Maria saw the sorrow etched under Isabella's aloof facade and felt an unquenchable need to help. "Hey," Maria said, her voice softer than she intended, like a warm hug on a cold day. Isabella looked up with tired eyes. "I'm here to help." Maria smiled, hoping to break through the wall that surrounded her. But Isabella only shrugged, returning to her phone like it was a life raft. The days turned into weeks filled with glimmers of connection. Maria's laughter echoed in the kitchen as she made pancakes like her mother had taught her, the aroma weaving its way through the mansion, curling around Isabella until she smiled. Little moments arose, shared secrets, late-night talks about dreams and fears. Maria showed Isabella what real work meant, how sweat and tears could build a person, while Isabella taught Maria the joy in the tiniest luxuries: a bubble bath, warm cashmere. They were growing into something beautiful together, but the shadows still lingered. Yet as they ventured further into each other's worlds, the differences gnawed at them. Maria watched Isabella slip effortlessly into parties filled with friends more interested in status than genuine connection. Maria's heart sank with each plush party invitation. "You've got to get out of this bubble." Maria's voice was firm one evening, but Isabella's face hardened, her privilege igniting resentment. "You don't know anything about my life," she shouted, the words laced with both fear and anger. Maria's breath hitched in her chest, a scream echoing back the truth of their differences laid bare. The walls they built around their hearts were rising high. Their confrontation simmered until Maria's heart ached with the thought of walking away. Maybe it was the right thing to do, to let her leave the isolated world of privilege where Isabella floated aimlessly, her safety net feeling more like a prison. But as Maria closed the door behind her that night, she felt the weight of her choice grow heavier. Isabella, rejected and confused, spiraled into reckless behavior that shocked even her privileged parents. They swept their pain under the carpet, hiding behind their money, while the community began to notice the cracks in their perfect facade. "Can you believe this?" Murmurs filled the air, interest piqued by the fall of a family so high in the social ladder. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when it seemed too late for both Maria and Isabella, fate drew them together once more under a stormy sky, the tension in the air palpable. They encountered a fractured moment that would force them to confront their fears and desires. With hearts pounding and eyes glistening, they stood at the precipice of understanding or calamity. Maria took a deep breath, fingers trembling, as she stepped towards Isabella, ready to fight for the hope they both so desperately needed. Would it be redemption or a deeper fracture? Maria stepped forward, her heart hammering as she searched Isabella's eyes for a sign of willingness to engage. The storm overhead mirrored the tempest raging between them. Rain began to patter down, as if the universe itself urged them to break their silence. "Isabella," Maria started softly, the sound of her voice almost lost against the thunder. "You have so much potential, but this This isn't helping you. In that moment, she could see the flicker of something: fear, anger, perhaps a hint of realization. You think you know me just because you've been here a few weeks? Isabella spat, but there was a tremor in her words. Maria wasn't there to fight. She was there to connect. She took another step closer, fighting the urge to retreat. I know enough. You're hiding behind a persona that doesn't even belong to you, Maria replied, any hint of resignation replaced by determination. You don't have to wear that mask with me. I've seen you laugh, I've seen you dream, and I've felt your pain. We're not so different. A crack appeared in Isabella's facade, just a tiny one, but enough that Maria could see the storm of emotions brewing behind it. You don't understand what it's like, everyone else watching me, waiting for me to fail. I'm scared, Maria. That small admission broke through the tension. Maria could feel the tide of their relationship shifting, waves of empathy washing over her heart. Then let me fight with you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to do this alone. I want to help you find what's real. Tears suddenly filled Isabella's eyes. A truce formed in the unlikeliest of places: a stormy street. Two girls with vastly different lives but identical wounds. It was an awakening, a fierce urge to break free from the chains that kept them both bound. Why do you care? Isabella asked, the wind carrying the weight of her question. Because I know what it feels like to be stuck, Maria confided, her own voice trembling. I've lived it, Isabella. It's suffocating to chase perfection, and it's exhausting to feel like you can never be good enough. I don't want you to fall apart like I almost did. For the first time, their gazes locked, and in that shared silence, they spoke volumes. Maria extended her hand, palm open, and Isabella stared at it, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Just then, a booming clash of thunder pulled them back, and in that instant, Isabella took a gamble. She reached for Maria's hand, their fingers intertwining, fragile but powerful. In that moment, they became allies, bound by the understanding that each could offer what the other lacked. The storm was still raging, but together they were beginning to find their footing amidst the chaos. Let us figure this out together, Maria said, a hint of a smile forming despite the rain as they walked back toward the mansion. A curious weight lifted, a shared sense of purpose began to bloom. They had stepped into the storm, but they were weathering it together. What neither of them knew was that Isabella's reckless behavior had not gone unnoticed. In the shadows, her parents were making plans, executing a strategy to shield their reputation while ignoring their daughter's needs. Just as she began to feel hope, the possibility of betrayal loomed large, threatening to tear apart the fragile bond they were building. Would their newfound alliance withstand the storm brewing within the walls of the Kensington mansion? The rain fell harder as Maria and Isabella approached the mansion, the deep rumbles of thunder echoing the turmoil inside them. They squeezed each other's hands, the simple gesture grounding them amidst the chaos of their thoughts. Inside, the grandeur of the Kensington mansion loomed large, a stark contrast to the vulnerability they had just shared. The elegant chandeliers and polished floors felt colder now, as if the walls themselves were listening to their secrets. Maybe we should, talk somewhere else? Maria suggested, eyeing the living room filled with family portraits and expensive decor. She didn't want their moment of connection to drown in the weight of expectation. Isabella nodded, her expression shifting from defiance to uncertainty. My room, maybe? It's quieter there. Once in Isabella's room, the air felt different. It was a sanctuary decorated with items reflecting her personality: carefully placed photo frames, colorful paint on the walls, and books stacked haphazardly on the nightstand. Yet, even this space felt suffocating, burdened by unspoken words and expectations. Isabella flopped onto her bed, her shoulders sagging as if the world pressed down on her. I just don't know how to get out of this mess, she sighed. Maria sat beside her, keenly aware of the cracks forming in Isabella's shield. You don't have to have all the answers right now. We can figure it out together step by step. Easier said than done, Isabella muttered, brushing her damp hair behind her ear. Maybe start by sharing the things you love, the real you, Maria encouraged, trying to spark something within her. What makes you feel alive? Isabella hesitated, glancing down at the comforter. I used to love painting, she finally whispered, almost as if confessing a secret. But my parents, she paused, biting her lip. But your parents, what? Maria asked gently, sensing the tension surrounding a story that needed to be told. They think it's a waste of time, Isabella admitted, her voice laced with disappointment. They want me to focus on, well, being perfect. Maria felt the ache in her heart, a familiar sting of being trapped by ideals. You can be perfect at being yourself, she said quietly. Maybe, Isabella replied, her voice barely above a whisper. But it seems impossible in this house. Then let us make it possible. We'll come up with a plan, a way for you to embrace your art. And if your parents don't understand, we'll find a way to show them, Maria offered, her voice solid with conviction. Just then, a sharp knock on the door interrupted the moment, causing both girls to jump. Isabella's expression turned anxious. She quickly wiped away a stray tear as her mother's voice cut through the air. Isabella, are you in there? We need to talk. Fear flashed in Isabella's eyes, the heaviness of her mother's tone piercing through the tentative peace they had begun to build. Just a second, Isabella called out, glancing at Maria for reassurance. What do we do? She whispered, panic evident on her face. We stand strong, Maria replied, her voice steady. Together. As Isabella's mother persisted outside the door, the last remnants of their conversation hung in the air, full of hope but shadowed by the weight of reality. Would they truly be able to navigate the storm together? Or were they merely sheltering under the same roof, waiting for the inevitable rain to drown them both? Isabella's heart raced as her mother's voice continued to echo through the door. She could hear the impatience dripping from each word. The walls of the room suddenly felt like a cage, closing in around her. What if she finds out? Isabella's voice trembled, fear pooling in her stomach like a heavy stone. She won tea, Maria said, but the determination in her voice wavered slightly. Let us just stay calm. Don't let her see that she's getting to you. Isabella bit her lip, the taste of fear mingling with the remnants of her tears. She shifted on the bed, her mind racing. Maria's presence was comforting, yet the pressure of the looming confrontation left her feeling exposed and vulnerable. The knocking persisted, becoming more forceful, the impatience of her mother undeniable. Isabella, this is important. What if I just tell her I'm not feeling well? Isabella suggested weakly, hoping to find a way out of this moment. No, don't do that, Maria replied, shaking her head. You've got this. Just breathe. Remember what we talked about, be yourself. Isabella nodded, though she felt the walls pushing closer, the air thickening as the seconds stretched on. Okay, but what do I even say? Start with the truth. Just take it one step at a time, Maria urged, squeezing her hand tightly. Taking a deep breath, Isabella finally stood up, her legs trembling as she crossed to the door. Maria followed, standing just behind her for support. With one last glance between them, Isabella opened the door. Her mother stood in the hallway, arms crossed, brow furrowed in that familiar frown that always made Isabella feel small. There you are. We need to talk about your grades. You're slipping, and I can't have that. She began, her voice tight. Mom. Before she could finish, her mother stepped inside the room. I just don't understand why you haven't been more focused. All of this art nonsense. Isabella felt heat rise in her cheeks. It's not nonsense. It's a part of me. The words slipped out before she could stop them, the anger and hurt spilling over. Her mother's eyes widened in surprise. Isabella, you need to be realistic. Art won't put food on the table or help you get into a good college. That's not fair. Isabella shouted, surprising even herself. Her heart thudded in her chest. I'm not just a grade or a trophy, Mom. I want to express myself. The silence that filled the room felt thick and heavy. Maria stood silent, watching the exchange with bated breath. Express yourself? Her mother's voice softened for a moment, confusion flickering in her eyes. You know we only want what's best for you. I know, but you don't even see me, Isabella replied, the tears she'd been holding back finally spilling over. I don't want to be perfect. I just want to be me. The weight of those words hung heavily in the room, and for a moment, her mother's fierce expression faltered. There was a flicker of uncertainty as she processed her daughter's outburst. Maria's presence behind Isabella anchored her. This moment felt pivotal, as though a tide was shifting beneath them. Would her mother finally understand, or would this be another battle lost? Isabella waited, her heart pounding, hoping against hope that this was the start of a real conversation. Isabella, her mother started, the urgency in her voice replaced by a softer tone. Let us talk this through. But just as hope sparked, the rumble of thunder outside seemed to echo the turbulence brewing within the walls. What would happen next? Would they finally connect? Or would the storm break them further apart? The storm outside intensified, the rain splattering against the window like 1,000 tiny fists. Isabella's heart quickened as a heavy silence filled the room, thick with unspoken words and emotions that had been locked away too long. Her mother took a deep breath, her features softening. I get it, Isabella, she said slowly, the anger in her voice dissolving into a hesitant compassion. I was just trying to help you succeed, to push you to be your best. But what if this is my best? Isabella replied, her voice barely above a whisper. What if I need space to grow? I'm not a robot programmed for grades, Mom. I swear I care, but when you talk about the future, it feels more like a cage than a ladder. Cage? Her mother echoed, confusion flickering across her face. Is that what you feel? A cage? Yes. I like painting, creating. But every time I pick up a brush, I hear your voice telling me it doesn't matter. Isabella felt the swell of tears again, but this time, there was a spark of defiance in her chest. The clouds outside rumbled louder, and with them, a tiny gust of wind howled, as if mirroring the tempest inside Isabella. She forced herself to hold her mother's gaze, not wanting to shrink back this time. This is who I am, and I'm scared you'll never see that. Her mother's expression shifted, a mixture of pain and understanding flickering in her eyes. For a moment, it felt like they were both standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into an uncertain future. Would they jump to safety, or let fear pull them back? I don't want you to struggle, Isabella, her mother finally said, her voice trembling. I just don't understand. I grew up with a different set of expectations. I had to fight for everything. That's exactly it, Isabella replied, urgency bubbling in her voice. You fought, but I want to build my own path, not follow your footsteps. There's more to life than just grades and success. I want to explore. Her mother clenched her jaw, the tension palpable. I thought that if I pushed you, you'd have it easier than I did, but it's harder this way. Isabella countered, relief flooding her heart as she finally spoke her truth. You may have had to fight, but I need to find my own way of fighting. If that means drawing, then let it be. Just let me find my footing. In the midst of their storm, a flicker of understanding passed between them. Isabella saw a reflection of her own fear in her mother's eyes, and wondered if there was a path leading them out of this tumultuous moment. I just want you to be happy, her mother finally said, her voice cracking. The storm outside began to soften, as if acknowledging the shift inside the room. Isabella took a shaky step forward, her heart racing. Then can we talk about it? Like really talk? Yes, let us talk, her mother replied, the lines around her mouth slowly easing into something resembling hope. But as they settled down to share their thoughts, the door creaked open slowly, revealing a figure standing in the doorway. It was Maria, her eyes wide with surprise, catching the raw emotion flooding the room. Sorry, but she hesitated, glancing between them. I could hear everything. Is everything okay? Now, with her mother's gaze locked on the door, Isabella felt new fears creeping in. What would Maria say? Would this mark the end of the tentative peace that had just begun to form? Isabella held her breath, waiting for the conversation to shift again. Would this moment of vulnerability give way to more tumult and misunderstandings? She could feel the weight of their emerging truths teetering on the edge, ready to tumble. Maria stepped inside, the door creaking behind her as she took in the tense atmosphere. The air was still charged with electric emotions, and her presence felt almost intrusive. Isabella's heart raced, anxiety tightening her chest. Everything fine? She managed, her voice shaky. The hesitation lingered in the room. Maria glanced between Isabella and her mother, sensing the fragile balance they had just begun to establish. I heard well, it sounded serious. Are you okay? Isabella exchanged a quick look with her mother, who nodded slightly, urging her to take the lead. Yeah, we were just talking about my future, she squeaked out, feeling the weight of her mother's hopes and fears pressing down on her. Oh, I get it, Maria said softly. My parents were always on my case about grades too. It's tough. There was a genuine understanding in her eyes, and for a moment, Isabella felt a small flood of relief wash over her. It's just I want to be an artist, Isabella blurted out, the words spilling from her lips before she could reel them back. Not a doctor or lawyer. I love painting, and I hate that it seems like it doesn't matter to anyone else. Wow, Maria replied, lightly biting her lip. That's really cool. You should be able to do what you want, right? Her mother's surprise was evident. You want to be an artist? She asked, voice barely above a whisper, as if the revelation was a fragile glass flower. Isabella nodded, swallowing hard. Yeah. I am serious about it. But it's such a risky path, her mother interjected, concern flaring in her eyes again. You know how hard it is to make it out there. Yeah, Isabella shot back, defensive. But you're all about risk. You turned your struggles into strength. Shouldn't I get to do the same? Even if that means starting with nothing? A profound silence fell between them. The room felt smaller as their hearts bared open, and Maria watched tensely, wishing she could help but not wanting to intrude. Isabella, I just want you to be safe, her mother finally replied, her voice trembling. I don't want you to go through what I did. But if I don't try, what's the point? Isabella felt a surge of frustration, her cheeks burning as she fought the tears threatening to erupt. You marched on your path. Let me march on mine. The air shimmered with a mix of tension and hope. Slowly, her mother's shoulders relaxed, the storm in her eyes fading. I don't know how to help you, sweetheart. I'm scared. I know, Isabella said softly, a thread of empathy weaving into her heart. But we can find out together? Maybe if you showed me your art, we could talk about it? Maria piped in, catching on to their wavering bridge of connection. Right, Isabella said, lifting her gaze at her mother, who was visibly surprised by Maria's suggestion. I could show you both the pieces I've been working on. Yes, that might be a good start, her mother brightened, a little glimmer of hope reflecting in her eyes. As they began to talk in softer tones of colors and canvases, Isabel felt an unfurling of possibility, a path illuminated by budding understanding. But just as her heart lifted, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by a flash of lightning. Isabella froze, fear clawing back. What was that? The peace they had just begun to cultivate felt fragile, hanging in the balance like the dark clouds above. What if, her mother said, voice tight, what if something happened to someone? Isabella's heart raced again, the looming uncertainty wrapping around them like a storm cloud. Would their moment of progress slip away, flushed by fears just as easily as it had begun? Isabella's heart thumped loudly against her ribcage, the looming darkness outside seeming to echo her internal chaos. She glanced nervously at Maria, who looked just as apprehensive. A part of her wanted to rush to the window and see what had happened, but another part urged her to stay put, to linger in this fragile moment of connection with her mother. Maria took a step closer. Should we check? Before Isabella could respond, her mother's voice cut through the tension. Wait, let me. You two stay here. Her mother's instinct to protect kicked in, and she moved towards the door, apprehensively peering outside. Isabella turned to Maria, their eyes locking for a brief moment. What if something really happened? She whispered, her voice trembling. Then we'll handle it together, Maria replied, the steadiness in her tone offering a thin ray of comfort. Isabella wished she could be as strong as Maria sounded. But the undercurrent of anxiety surged again when her mother pushed the door open, revealing a torrential downpour that blurred everything beyond the threshold. A crash of thunder rattled the windows, making Isabella flinch. "Mom?" she called out, a sense of urgency creeping in as she rushed to the door. She felt Maria give her a gentle push to follow. "What did you see?" As she stepped out into the storm, her mother squinted into the darkness, her features shadowed by the flashing light across the skies. "It's just a fallen tree branch," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Almost hit the car." Isabella exhaled sharply, the burdens of the earlier conversation still dancing in the back of her mind. "Oh, thank goodness!" She looked back at Maria, who joined them in the doorway, both of them drenched by the scattered drops of rain that swept in. "See?" Maria offered, a shy smile breaking through. "Just a scare." But Isabella's relief was short-lived. She turned back to her mother, her heart still racing. Can we go back to talking about art? I really want to show you what I've created. I need you to see it." Her mother's eyes softened, framed by the storm outside. "Of course, sweetie. I'm sorry for worrying you." Slowly, back in the cramped living room, Isabella felt the heaviness lift, as if the wind outside had swept away more than just rain. She shuffled towards her small studio, paint stains marring her hands as she reached for a pile of canvases leaning against the wall. "Let me see, please," Maria encouraged, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Isabella began pulling each piece from behind the curtain, revealing her world the colors that spoke in whispers, the strokes that narrated her feelings, captured in every detail. "This one's my favorite," she said, turning to reveal a swirling canvas of blues and greens, splattered with bursts of fiery oranges. "That's how I feel when I paint." Her mother stepped closer, leaning in as if to see magic hidden in the hues. "Isabella, this is beautiful. I had no idea you poured so much into it," she whispered, the admiration in her voice warm as the sunlight that had been overshadowed. Isabella felt the warmth of her mother's praise seep through the cracks that anxiety had formed. Just as she was about to speak, another crash struck, louder this time, shaking the very foundation of their moment. "What was that?" Isabella cried, heart quickening again. Was the storm just an echo of her own inner turmoil? Maria glanced at Isabella, eyes wide with concern. "Maybe we should call someone just to check, or we can wait and see," her mother replied, worry tinted with caution. "Maybe it's just the storm messing with our heads." But Isabella couldn't shake the unsettling feeling, the fabric of their rekindled connection feeling as precarious as the skies outside. What if it's not just the storm? She thought quietly as thunder rumbled. One truth began to merge with her fear. Growing trust could be as terrifying as it was beautiful. Could they really navigate these storms together? When the next crash resonated deep inside their surroundings, Isabella couldn't help but wonder, what else was hidden in the shadows? Beyond their moment of progress? Isabella stood frozen, her fingers clutching a canvas, her heart still racing from both the storm outside and the unexpected praise from her mother. Maria shifted closer, a reassuring presence in the thick tension that hung in the air like the heavy humidity from the storm. "Isabella, let us focus on your art," Maria said softly, trying to steer them back to the lighter atmosphere they had just begun to embrace. Her smile was filled with the kind of hope that was contagious, but Isabella could feel the unease creeping back in. "Yes, let me see more," her mother chimed in, her voice gentle yet eager, as if testing the waters with cautious optimism. Isabella took a deep breath and pulled another canvas forward. This one reflected a chaotic swirl of colors, jarring yet vibrant, depicting a storm with jagged lines that seemed to dance across the fabric. "This is about the moment I realized how my emotions can turn chaotic. Just like tonight," she stammered, the words tumbling out. Her mother's brow furrowed slightly, not from disapproval but from understanding. "You're processing things, aren't you? It's okay to feel that way," she said, an openness in her tone that made Isabella feel heard. Just then, a rumble of thunder echoed louder, drowning out her mother's words. A flicker of power surged through the house, dimming the lights momentarily before they steadied again, illuminating the worn wood of the living room around them. Isabella's heart sank as the anxiety returned. What else could happen? She pondered. Let us sit down for a minute, her mother suggested, the worried edge creeping back into her voice. She motioned toward the couch as another flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing the tangled mess of life and art around them as they sat together. Isabella felt the silence wrap around them. Her hand trembled slightly as she placed it over the fabric of her canvas. Can storms be a good thing? She asked, vulnerability slipping into her voice. It felt like a question not just about the weather, but about their family dynamics, their emotions, fears, and the growth that was happening in the space between them. Maria leaned forward, her eyes wide with curiosity and empathy. I think they can. They force us to confront what we feel, and sometimes you find beauty in the chaos. Like in art, she said, her words lively yet reflective, urging them to continue. Isabella mulled over this thought, battling the tempest inside her. But what if the storm destroys everything? She whispered, feeling the weight of her worries seep into the words. The vulnerability was palpable, a clear, binding thread connecting her and her mother in this nuanced moment. Sometimes things get broken, and later they can be beautiful again, her mother said, squeezing Isabella's hand. Sometimes it takes the storm to wash away the old, even if it's scary. A murmur of understanding passed between them. Isabella felt a flicker of that warmth return, the inkling of hope beneath the chaos. She had spent so long hiding her artwork, her fears, and most importantly, her vulnerabilities. Perhaps it was time to let it all flow out, even if it led to moments of discomfort. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, this time going out completely. They were plunged into darkness, broken only by intermittent flashes of lightning. Isabella's breath caught, not from fear, but from the possibility that this storm was more than it seemed. Is everything okay? Maria's voice broke through the silence, laced with concern. Before Isabella could respond, the door rattled as a loud knock echoed through the house. Her heart raced as uncertainty flooded back in. What if it's something more? Stay here, her mother instructed, a protective edge in her voice that was both grounding and heartening. Isabella gripped Maria's hand tightly, a new question swirling in her mind. What awaited them on the other side of the storm, and what if their greatest fear was hiding there? Isabella's grip tightened around Maria's hand as the sound of the knock reverberated through the darkness of their home. The flash of lightning painted the room for a brief moment, revealing the worried looks on their faces. Her heart felt like it was trapped in a vice, squeezing with fear and curiosity. Who would be out there? Maria whispered, barely audible over the growing storm. I don't know, Isabella admitted, her voice trembling. Could be anyone, let us just wait, Maria said, still trying to maintain some air of calmness. But the way she glanced at Isabella said it all. They both felt the mounting tension. Isabella looked toward her mother, who remained seated but vigilant, her eyes fixed on the door. Mom, what if it's someone dangerous? Her mother hesitated, shifting her focus back to them. We don't know that yet, she replied, her voice steady but laced with concern. But we need to stay together, okay? Isabella nodded, trying to find strength in her mother's words. But as another knock resounded, louder this time, doubt began to creep in. What if it's the storm? She mused. What if it's like my painting? The chaotic colors swirled in her mind. The storm outside was a force she couldn't ignore, and neither could her family. Just as a violent gust of wind rattled the windows, the sound of breaking glass pierced through the night, an unmistakable, horrifying sound. The air around them shifted, thickening with dread. Get down, her mother suddenly commanded, her voice sharp with urgency. The three of them dropped to the floor, huddled together as the next crash echoed through their home. Isabella felt Maria's fingers fumble for their phones, and soon, the faint light of screens illuminated scared faces. What do we do? Isabella whispered urgently, her body trembling as they remained crouched low. Call for help, Maria suggested, her voice more assertive despite the mounting terror. I'll call the police. Isabella squared her jaw and glanced at her mother. Through this chaos, she searched for some semblance of strength. We can't let fear win, she stated, surprising even herself. The art she had concealed for so long surged in her thoughts. She had to break free from the fear engulfing her, just like the storm that threatened to destroy. Isabella, her mother, replied, her eyes widening, almost in amazement. We'll face whatever is coming, together. Another loud knock on the door, followed by a forceful shove. The door rattled but held firm, standing strong against the fear pouring in from the outside. Stay close, Maria said, pulling them tighter together. Time seemed to stretch in the silence punctuated by the howling wind. Then, without warning, the door burst open, pushed by a wave of wind and rain that rushed into the house like an invading army. The shadows outside loomed larger, swirling like dark clouds. Isabella, her mother called, urgency flooding her voice. What do you want me to do? Before Isabella could answer, a tall figure entered, silhouetted against the flashes of lightning. In a split second, her mind raced through a dozen horrifying possibilities. Wait, who are you? Isabella called out, her voice barely above the storm's haunting roar. Help is here, the figure shouted, and yet it felt like they were on the edge of a cliff, suspended in a moment of pure uncertainty. Isabella's heart pounded. As the figure approached, she braced herself, filled with a mix of hope and dread. Who was this person? Did they bring a fierce storm or a beacon of light? The answer was just a breath away, but would it shatter their world or piece it back together? As the figure stepped closer, the soft glow of a flashlight revealed a paramedic, drenched but determined. We received calls about the storm damage in this area. Are you all right? Isabella's mother let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding, but Isabella remained frozen, heart racing as a strange mix of fear and comfort filled her chest. We're fine, she stammered, trying to shake off the tension. The medic nodded, scanning the room and taking in the wreckage of broken glass and chaos that still hung in the air. We're here to help. Just make sure to stay away from the windows. Have you experienced any injuries? This snapped Maria and Isabella's focus back on reality, pulling them away from the whirlwind of emotions that had been bubbling since the storm began. No, just scared, Isabella admitted, taking a deep breath as she glanced at her mother, who was nodding in agreement. Good. That's the first step to safety, the medic replied, moving to check the living room while Maria positioned herself closer to Isabella, fingers intertwining again, creating an anchor amidst the uncertainty. As the medic conducted a quick check, Isabella felt the weight of fear slowly lift, replaced by an odd sense of security in the chaos. Do you think the storm will pass soon? Isabella ventured, her voice cautiously hopeful. The medic offered a reassuring smile. It will. Storms like this don't last forever. They can feel overwhelming, but they also bring change. Sometimes it's the turbulence that clears a path. Isabella felt an unfamiliar warmth envelop her heart. It was a reminder of what they had just begun building. A way to connect, to express, to embrace the chaos of life together. We were just talking about art, Maria chimed in, eager to shift focus back to the connection that had recently blossomed. Isabella has some amazing pieces. We were just about to share them. Her mother nodded slowly, a spark of curiosity igniting in her eyes. Really? I'd love to see them. With everyone distracted by the sudden commotion and held together by a strange bond forged in the storm, Isabella's courage swelled unexpectedly. Okay, she said, stepping away from the shadows that fear had cast upon her just moments ago. I can show you what I've been working on if you both want to see. As the medic stepped aside, Maria and her mother moved closer, forming a protective circle around Isabella and encouraging her forward. The laughter and warmth that punctuated the conversation moments ago felt like a precious light piercing through the lingering darkness. Isabella retrieved her canvases, the colors vivid against the stark backdrop of chaos they had just endured. This one is about finding beauty in storms, she said, glancing between her mother and Maria as she unveiled each piece with pride. And this is about embracing who I truly am. Her mother leaned in, a soft expression replacing any residual worry as she studied the significance behind the strokes. As recognition flickered in her eyes, Isabella felt the last fragments of doubt fade away. This beautiful, sweetheart. You've captured something raw and powerful. Her mother's voice wavered but remained steady. Tears welled up in Isabella's eyes. This moment felt transformative. And you can always be a part of it, even if it doesn't look like what you imagined. The medic nodded in agreement, still in sight but letting the scene unfold naturally. It looks like you've got a talent for channeling emotions into your work. Art can heal, it builds bridges. Just like storms, Isabella added, her voice steadier now. They can change everything, but they also allow things to grow. I think we're learning that together. Her mother smiled gently, the storm outside slowly quieting to a mere whisper. I may have things to learn, but I want to support you. Let us talk about what it looks like to embrace your passion to nurture your dreams. Isabella. Isabella's heart felt light, full of anticipation. Really? You mean it? Absolutely, her mother said firmly, the love in her eyes shining through the darkness. They had been facing. Together we can find a way through this. As the last beats of thunder rolled into the far distance, whispers of hope flooded the room. The storm had tested their strength, but together they were ready to weather future challenges, both chaotic and beautiful. The night carried remnants of fear, but it also held the promise of new beginnings. In that small living room, 3 hearts began to pulse as one, united against the storms that life threw at them. Join this incredible journey. You need to subscribe now to not miss exclusive stories that uplift the spirit. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and help this community grow. Comment below your feelings about this heartwarming ending. You have to share this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to see and embrace their own storms. Together, we can bring a light into each other's lives. Let's make magic happen.